Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 34 wildcard draft. We've been talking about this for so long, I've spent all week planning it. There have been some last minute changes, but we're going to get through all of that in today's video. If you're enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's look at my wildcard for Game Week 34. So guys, I'm delighted to say that Ultimate Champions is finally live. You can finally play the full game now. First link in the description will take you there. Completely free to play. Like I've said for a while, basically combines fantasy football with trading cards, with FIFA. You build up the best team you possibly can as NFTs or non-fungible tokens. When those players do well in real life, you earn more points. The more points you earn, the better rewards you earn. You can then open packs, trade on the market, and earn some serious cash as well. It genuinely is such a slick, cool game, and I will be playing this game as well. So if you want to support the channel for free, or if you just want to play a cool game for free as well, first link in the description will take you there. As I always say, if you do join Ultimate Champions, build your first draft, send it to me, let me know what you think of the game down below in the comments. So guys, we won't look at this for too long. I want to move on to Game Week 34 wildcard, but this is how Game Week 33 free hit went for me. Scored 92 points, which took me from 54k to 37k. So the free hit was definitely a success. A lot of the players that did well for me this week, I didn't own in my normal team. And therefore, I think I am definitely happy that I chose to play my final free hit in this week, especially as I've still got the wild card now to build for future weeks as well. Schmeichel, Target, Walker-Peters, and Share all did very well. Target, Walker-Peters, and Share obviously getting a clean sheet each. Target getting full bonus as well in the second game, giving him 11 points. Really happy with those. Schmeichel getting 5 points despite no clean sheet is also pretty decent. Although the fact that he was on full bonus and getting a clean sheet, he was on about sort of 10, 11 points the double game week before Richarlison scored that last minute goal. So slightly frustrating, but pretty happy with the back line, especially considering Cancelo and Trent only got 6 points apiece. All of my double game week players for much cheaper outscored those guys, so I'm very happy about that. The midfield was basically a mixed bag. Salah and Saka doing very well with 29 points between them. Very happy that I decided to go with Salah on the free hit in the end, because at the start of the week I was considering maybe going without him. And then the two Manchester United boys, very disappointing. You guys did tell me that Manchester United weren't worth picking. You were technically correct, because Sancho and Fernandes didn't do very well, but Ronaldo absolutely smashed it. So 3 for Sancho, 6 for Fernandes, or 3 times 2 for my captaincy. So slightly disappointing captaincy decision there. And then Ronaldo with 17 points. So between them scoring 23 points or 26 with captaincy isn't too bad. But if I'd have captained Ronaldo, I think I would have felt a lot better. And then the two remaining players, Chris Wood getting 2 blanks. I think we almost saw that coming. But with the fact that he was on penalties, his underlying data had improved slightly in recent weeks with 2 home fixtures. I think it was a sensible decision. It just ended up being one that didn't pay off. And then Adams was super frustrating. So just a bit of context for why I picked Adams. Adams had started 10 games in a row for Southampton. So 10 games in a row, played 90 minutes in almost all of them. He was actually sitting over the last 6 matches at 158 minutes per expected goal involvement. If you're not interested in underlying statistics, he was at the top of the list for pretty much every single free hit option this week, under the price of obviously like the likes of Fernandes and Ronaldo. So out of all of the cheaper options, Adams had the best underlying statistics, had a very decent double against a shaky Arsenal defence and Burnley, and he was pretty nailed on. So the fact that he got benched for 2 in a row and came on for 25 minutes at the end to block my Barnes 12-pointer on the bench, it did really, really hurt. But to be honest, I like to try and be as realistic as possible in FPL. I was never starting Barnes ahead of Adams. If I'd have started Barnes, as we discussed on my live stream just before I submitted this team, it would have been ahead of Saka. So I've only lost out on 2 points there, not starting Barnes ahead of Saka. And with respect to the captaincy, I was tempted by Ronaldo, but I was probably never going to captain Ronaldo. I was always going to go with the slightly safer minutes in Fernandes. And therefore, I'm pretty happy with all of the decisions I made. It would have been nice to get Barnes in, but 92 points, up to 37k now. I'm about 50 points-ish off the top 10k. So as we're going to see with the wildcard, I'm going to take some risks. Wildcard 34, bench boost 36. Let's do this. So the wildcard is fairly locked. Pretty much, I'd say about 13 spots are locked. There are a couple that I can switch, and it basically comes down to, do I want to bank transfers? To just explain it before we get into it, I'm bench boosting in 36, wildcard 34. That means I have a free transfer in 35, and then a free transfer in 36. So if I'm bench boosting in 36, I need 15 good players, preferably 15 doublers for 36. But I will have 2, because I won't need to really use one unless I get a big injury in 35. But to be honest, my bench should cover it. I shouldn't need to use a transfer in 35. So I'm almost definitely going to have 2 free transfers for 36. So then the question comes, do you just start with a slightly more optimal team for 34, 35, and then use those 2 free transfers to improve the bench and build towards a bench boost 36? I'm currently leaning towards doing that. So at the start of the week, I was thinking, I don't want to bank transfers because what happens if, for example, just the players on your screen, Cancelo and Laporte get injured? If I've already banked 2 transfers and I get 2 injuries, I might have to take a -8 to fill the bench boost. I've decided to just go for it. With my current rank and with the way that this wildcard is lined up, I think there are such opportunities to take a few risks. So at the moment, I'm currently planning on building a team where I need to use 1 or 2 transfers to get to a good bench boost in 36. But we're going to discuss all of that. Starting with the defense, I am currently playing a 4-4-2. I was looking at a 5-4-1, but I just don't think I want that much money in defense. I'm pretty happy. There's already a lot of money in the defense. I don't think I want another premium defender. So currently on a 4-4-2, I do have Schmeichel in goal. I started to look at Pickford, because actually Everton's data is better than Leicester's. But Everton have a really tricky fixture in 34 and 35. I think it's Liverpool and City. They've got a pretty tricky fixture in 38 as well. I believe it's against Arsenal. So yes, their doubles are good in 36 and 37, but I think Schmeichel's general fixtures are slightly better. And I guess I'm just hoping potentially that he gets a couple of clean sheets in there. I just don't want to spend too much on that goalkeeping spot. So Schmeichel's in for now. Doubles 36, double 37. And then the back 4 for me, most of them pick themselves. So we'll start with Trent. I've looked at Trent's data. It's too good for me not to pick him. I've had to buy him back at 8.4 because I did sell Trent a few weeks ago. He's still worth the price for me. I think I would have paid up to about 9 million for Trent. I do think he's that good, and I just want to own him for the back end of the season. I think rotation is very minimal. I think with Robertson, even potentially against Everton, I think there is that slight risk with Tsimikas, and his data just isn't anywhere near as good as Trent's. Trent is much better with respect to both creativity and goal threat as well. So I prefer Trent personally. Then I've got the 2 City defenders. I've got Cancelo and Laporte. The main reason for having these guys is, of course, Manchester City have the best defence in the Premier League over the last 6 and across the season as well. So you are getting the best defence, almost nailed on clean sheets for a lot of the weeks. I would expect them across their last sort of 6-7 games to get potentially minimum of 4 clean sheets. They are that good, and the fixtures are that good as well. And the other reason is they're actually suffering with a lot of injuries at the moment in their defence. Not injuries to the extent where any of their first team are missing out, but they are picking up a few knocks in there. I know Ake picked up a knock, Stones potentially picked up a knock, Walker picked up a knock. So I think realistically, hopefully anyway, Cancelo and Laporte should be nailed on for the Watford game and potentially nailed on long term as well. And I do think that they are both first choice as well. They're both showing pretty good goal threat as well. Cancelo more creativity and expected assist. Laporte actually showing some decent goal threat, taking quite a few shots for a centre-back. So I really like the double up on the City defence. At the time of recording this, you might actually find out today. So I've got a suspicion that on Friday at lunch or Friday at 4, we might actually find out whether City double in 36 or they double in 37. That doesn't really change my wildcard draft. I want Manchester City players anyway. Even if I'm bench boosting in 36, I'm happy having 2 Manchester City players plus 13 doublers. So basically, whenever that announcement goes, it doesn't really bother me whether they double in 36 or 37. I'm probably going to have at least double City, probably triple City. I think they're that good. And then the 4th defender, as you can see at the moment, is actually Alonso. Now, this was Reece James. I'm not necessarily put off by the right centre-back thing, but I do think the fact that he might potentially play a few games at right centre-back, also the fact that he has played a lot of minutes. Yes, they've been at right centre-back, but regardless, he's played a lot of minutes recently. I've got a suspicion that he might miss one of the next 2 games in game week 34, one against West Ham United. Potentially the game against West Ham he could miss. Outside of that, I just think that the upside might be there with Alonso. In more recent weeks, Alonso has demonstrated slightly better goal threat. He basically passes the eye test, gets into the box really well. And I just like him at that price. The other reason is, as you can see, with the players that I've decided to put in, with a couple of last minute changes, which we're going to get onto, I've actually only got 0.2 million in the bank, so I can't actually get up to James. I'm quite happy with that because I was really struggling to choose between James and Alonso. The recent change that I've made has actually forced me into choosing Alonso, and I quite like it, to be honest. So if you're watching this and you're not sure who to choose, I would still just about put James ahead of Alonso, but I think it's very close. And if you can't afford James or using that fund will help you elsewhere, I really like Alonso as a result. So that's the current back 4. Really happy with it. Let's move on to the midfield 4. Right, here is where the money is, and here is where the big punt is as well. So we'll start with Mohamed Salah. He's been in every single one of my drafts, even before the Manchester United game. If you've watched any of my videos over the last few weeks, I've said that Salah is absolutely locked in my wildcard. His underlying data has been the best in the league all season. It's still the best in the league over the last 6. Salah should be in everyone's draft, in my personal opinion. Obviously, if you're ranked maybe outside the top 100k and you really want to push on, for example, Mark Southern's on Black Box. I know he's potentially looking at going without Salah. For that reason, he's ranked about 150k and he wants to push on. I understand that. If it's an EO game you're playing and you're trying to bank against him doing well because he's so highly owned, I sort of understand that. But if you're relatively happy with your rank, or you're going with other differentials, like I've got so many other differentials in my team, I just think Salah's the one for me. I'll captain him in most weeks for the remainder of the season, or at least maybe 3 of the remaining 5 game weeks. I've then got the 2 Chelsea midfielders, Havertz and Mount. I've currently got the armband on Havertz. That's just because he got that slight rest in game week 33. It could potentially switch to Mount. It could even go on Alonso. It might even end up on Salah. I'm pretty sure, though, based on recent data over the last 6, again, we discussed that in the game week preview stream, and based on the fact that he got a bit of a rest, I think I want to go with Kai Havertz. It could maybe end up on Mount. I would assume it will be between the 2 of those. I do think Werner is a brilliant option, and I have looked at dropping Alonso down to like a cheap defender, maybe like an Emerson Royale, putting him in defense and then upgrading one of my strikers to Werner and having Havertz mount Werner. I just think that I do want that Chelsea cover in the defence. And I do think clean sheets are a potential in this upcoming game week and beyond. And I think Alonso's got such great goal threat that if he gets a goal and a clean sheet, he's got 15 points, right? I know that is obviously 2 things need to happen, clean sheet and a goal. But for Werner to match 15 points, you're looking at maybe 3 or 4 attacking returns. So I just think the upside is there with Alonso and James. That I'd prefer one of those in comparison to Werner. So Havertz and Mount are fairly locked in. The final spot has actually recently changed to Sterling. And this is one of the reasons that Alonso has now been... James has been downgraded to Alonso. And one of the main reasons that I said, like I said, I'm banking transfers is I think at the moment anyway, I'm going to put Sterling in my draft. The reason for that is I think he's got a decent chance of starting Watford. I don't want to say he's nailed on because you just never know with Pep and Manchester City. I think he's got a very good chance of starting against Watford, and that is a very good fixture for City. Pep said on a few occasions they're going to be going for goal difference because it might come down to that at the end of the season. And I also think as a result, if he's then maybe rested in the Champions League, he has a good chance of starting against Leeds as well. If he then starts against Leeds, and if he looks good over these, I could keep him for either, if they double in 36 City, I could keep him for 36. If they double in 37, I could keep him for 36 and then have him for 37 anyway. But most realistically, I've then got a £10.5 million spot in midfield that I can downgrade to then upgrade my bench. So what I'm currently planning is keeping Sterling for Watford and Leeds, and then switching him out for one of my cheaper strikers to upgrade my bench spot. So it's basically a 2-week punt. I'm not set on this at all. Like I said, this has been a fairly last-minute change. I've been thinking about it all day Thursday, and tinkering on Thursday evening, I think it's something that I want to do. Looking at my rank, like I said, almost 50 points off the top 10k. I need a few risks, and I need a few players that can go absolutely crazy. Sterling has the other part of it in his locker in his game, where he could get me a -2. He could miss a penalty and get sent off. He has that in his locker in FPL, and he is a bit of a troll. He might not even start. I just think the upside's there to potentially attack it. If I don't go for Sterling, just so that you guys know, because I don't need to be shocked by my lineup, I will announce it on Twitter way before the deadline. If I don't go for Sterling, it has been in Coutinho in that spot all week. So if it's not Sterling, it will be Coutinho in that spot. The reason is he's got Leicester, Norwich, double game week against Burnley, Liverpool, and then I think he's the best captaincy shout. Is it Crystal Palace and Burnley, I believe, in game week 37. So with Coutinho, you get a double in 36-37, and you get Leicester and Norwich in the next 2. So I love Coutinho as an option. I think he's absolutely fantastic, and I may well still go for him. But for the time being, I think I want Sterling in that spot. I think the upside's there. Do let me know down below what you think of the Sterling punt. I know a lot of people aren't going to like it, and I know a lot of people will say, rather than Sterling, why don't you just go for Heung-min Son in there? He's only £0.6 million more expensive. Why don't you go for the player that's actually been delivering and is showing good underlying statistics? I want to take the risk going without Son. I think Brentford's a slightly tricky fixture. Yes, the Leicester fixture in 35 is great, but he's quite highly owned. Like I said, I'm pushing towards the top 10k, or I want to push towards the top 10k now. I think Sterling's a risk I'm willing to take, but like I said, do let me know what you think down below. Let's look at the 2 strikers in the bench and then discuss game week 36. Right, so finishing off the team, we've got the 2 strikers and then we've got the bench as well. And let me explain how I plan on getting this bench, like I said, in a decent position for 36 as well, before you comment down below and let me know that Gelhardt isn't probably going to play. So starting with the 2 strikers that will probably be starting for me in game week 34 and game week 35, and potentially even in game week 36, although Pukki might be on the bench, is Watkins and Pukki. I've spoken about these extensively in 2 videos this week, in the game week preview video and my wildcard guide video. Pookie in particular at the moment is demonstrating really, really, really good underlying statistics. Not only expected goals, but non-penalty expected goals. So even taking it out of the equation, the penalty he had recently, his underlying data is super strong. And I just think at that sort of sub 6 million spot, I do like Nketiah. I think he's fine. I think he could potentially keep his place. João Pedro looks fairly nailed for now. I don't mind Mateta. But I think he's worth the upgrade on those guys if you can afford it. And I think Pookie, I think he's gone up to 6 million now, hasn't he? He's gone up from 5.9. So at 6 million, I think he's the best option around that cheaper price. And then Watkins, I do think is still a good option. Again, similar to what I said with Coutinho, Leicester, Norwich, double. Not the best fixture in 38, but you can transfer him out or bench him. I just think over that period, there aren't many better strikers. I am slightly worried, or slightly cautious at least, that a few Villa fans are calling for him to be dropped. But I just think that he is probably their best striker at the moment, and they can play Ings and Watkins together if they want to. So I don't think he'll necessarily be dropped. He might see a couple of early subs, but there just aren't enough strikers for me that I would prefer instead of him. And I think he is worth the upgrade on the likes of potentially Nketiah, João Pedro, Mateta, like I said. So those are sort of the two strikers that I'll have for 35, 36, and maybe even 37 as well, and 34, of course. And then the bench is, at the moment, Matty Cash as my 5th defender. I think he's the cheapest I'd want to go. Like I said, I looked at some drafts getting that Emerson Royale in there, or Ben Davies, or White. There are a few options that you can go for. I just don't like any of them. I don't like their doubles enough, and I don't like the attacking output that they are demonstrating. I think Matty Cash is probably the cheapest option that I want to go for at 5.2, and I think he's a great 5th defender. Like I said, with Watkins, he's got the double-double. He's got decent fixtures. If I need him off the bench, if Sterling does miss out, or Cancelo or Laporte miss out, if any of these players miss out, I've got Cash on the bench there. And I really like him over the next sort of 4 or 5 game weeks over the remainder of the season. The other midfield spot is Gordon at the moment. I've had a few questions about this. I personally prefer Gordon to KDH. I just think he's a slightly better option. He is £0.2 million more, but the underlying statistics are, in my opinion, enough to justify that extra bit of money. I bought him at 4.5 million, so I've got him at 0.1 cheaper. So for me, unless I need that money when I start doing some tinkering, it's a bit of a no-brainer for me, at least at the moment, keeping Gordon. I think the upside is just slightly there over KDH. And then, as you can see, my third striker at the moment is Gelhardt. I do not want Gelhardt on my bench boost. I don't think he'll play over the next few, or at least I don't think he'll start. However, of course, if Gelhardt does start and he looks fantastic, I might well keep him for 36 and bench boost. I might just keep that value, that spot, fairly low value. Most likely what's going to happen, which we'll discuss in slightly more detail in a second, is I have Sterling, Havertz and Mount, and even to some extent Laporte. If City don't double in 36, Sterling, Laporte, Havertz, Mount, I think I'd be happy selling any of those 4. The reason for potentially selling Sterling is he's a bit of a rotation risk. He's very expensive. And if City don't double in 36, I think there's a good chance that I'd want to get rid of him. If City don't double in 36, I think Laporte would be fine to downgrade for the 1 week if I wanted to. And then with Havertz and Mount, as we've spoken about for a while now, the second fixture in 36 against Leeds is just before the FA Cup final. We're expecting City to show a mass rotation in that game. So I actually think for most Chelsea assets in game week 36, it's probably going to be a single game week, or at least an early substitution in the second game. Maybe they'll only get like 120 minutes. All of that together, I think I have 3 cash cows to upgrade that Gelhardt spot. So I could do Sterling down to Saka. That would give me like about £4 million to upgrade Gelhardt to whoever I want in that spot. I could potentially upgrade him. It will probably almost definitely be Richarlison. Outside of that, if I downgrade Havertz or Mount to a KDH, I can again get Gelhardt up to Richarlison. So I have a few different options of how to get that Gelhardt spot. Like I said, it's probably up to Richarlison. If I can't quite do that and I don't want to, I do have Mateta there. If Nketiah is still playing, I have Nketiah as an option. If João Pedro looks good, I've got him. If Dennis looks good, I've got him. So I almost give myself a couple more weeks to decide what cheaper striker I want in that spot and what striker I want for bench boost 36. So this is why I quite like starting with Sterling. Get Sterling for hopefully 2 games against Watford and Leeds, then move him out in 36 probably, and then bring someone else in for Gelhardt. I would then probably take a -4 because I still think I would want to take out one of Havertz and Mount. Like I said, I don't expect either of them to start both games. And then I have free choice for another spot in midfield. Again, Saka, Martinelli. I might go for any of those options in that midfield spot. Might even take a massive punt on someone like Ismail Assar. There are so many options that you can go for. So we're going to look at all of that in a second. In slightly more detail, we'll go do a bit of a live tinker. But this is currently my Game Week 34 wildcard. So if this is all you wanted to see, let me know what you think of it down below. I do have plans for future transfers as well. I guess the big decision for me is, do I want to start like this and bank transfers in? Or do I say, you know what, Sterling's not worth it. I can either do 2 things here. I can try and get Heung-min Son into that spot by making another slight transfer change. I can try and get someone like Jota into that spot, who is still a punt, but significantly cheaper. So Jota could come in for Sterling. That would allow me to upgrade Alonso back to James, and then maybe Gelhardt up to the likes of Mateta and João Pedro. So Jota could come into that spot. Or I could just go back to my original draft. So my original draft, if you're wondering what my original draft was going to be for this video, is Coutinho in Sterling's position, and then Gelhardt up to Richarlison, and then maybe Alonso up to James. So it essentially comes down to basically Sterling versus Coutinho for me. How well do I think Sterling's going to do? I think he's going to do pretty well, but I also do like Coutinho. Like I said, let me know down below. Let's take a bit of a live tinker and look at what the team might look like for Bench Boost 36. So guys, we've head over to FPL.team. So if you type in FPL.team in your URL, it'll bring up this site that allows you to plan ahead. What I'd like to do is just show you what my team might look like for Bench Boost 36 and look at some of my potential planned transfers. Now, I'm not trying to get too far ahead of myself. I know anything could happen. If like Watkins, Pukki, Havertz and Mount all got injured this week, I'd be in some serious trouble. But you can't predict some of these things. And rather than booking in specific transfers, what I'm showing you is what some potential transfers could be and what I would need to do along the lines of to field a decent bench boost in 36. So do bear with me as we do this. This is the team for 34 as it currently stands. Like I said, it might be Coutinho in there for Sterling, which would allow me to go Gelhardt up to Richarlison. But for now, I quite like this. So if I just skip ahead to game week 35, right, the team's pretty much perfect. The only change I think I can foresee myself making is probably I would start Foster ahead of Schmeichel. That's it, pretty much. I don't really want to start Foster. I don't really see a clean sheet coming, but I think it's more likely than if I were to start Schmeichel. So the team wouldn't change too much in 35. Like I said, and again, unless I get like 2 transfers, because I do have Matty Cash sitting first sub against Norwich at home, I don't think I would need to make a transfer here. So again, I do think there's a reasonable chance that 1 or 2 of my players miss out here, but they'll probably come off from the bench. And if they don't, I've got Cash there. And it's not ideal, but I do have Gordon on there as well if I really do need 2 subs. So I think I would keep the team as is. So then if we just go straight to 36 to look at the way the team looks, like I said, at the time of recording this, I don't know when City double it. It's either 36 or 37, but that probably doesn't change my defence. I think I'm happy having Laporte and Cancelo anyway. I'm happy having those as my 2 single game week players. So I don't think I would change too much. If City double in 36 rather than in 37, absolutely amazing. I'm going to have a team of 15 doublers, which is going to be absolutely brilliant. Right, so Schmeichel would come in for Foster. Cash would probably stay on my bench. And then what I would do, like I said, is at this point, I'm thinking it's probably going to be Sterling out for a midfielder of some kind. Now, at the moment, I'm currently thinking it might be potentially someone like Saka. So the reason I say that is I do really think they've got a really good fixture against Leeds. And if they've still got something to play for, I think that's a really nice transfer there as a result. Could go Martinelli, potentially. Outside of that, there are some other options that you could go for. The likes of Maddison and Barnes could be really good shouts if you expect them to start. But it does really boil down to if you expect them to start. There are options outside of that. Potentially a Diaz, potentially a Jota if you expect them to start. So I can't really tell you exactly what this transfer would be, unfortunately. But what I can tell you is it would be a cheaper player to allow me to upgrade Gelhardt. So just for the sake of it, because we know he's a decent option, right? Let's just say that it's Saka as the option that I make. Remember, I'd have 2 free transfers here. So let's do Saka in for Sterling. And that gives me, if I just scroll down, 3.8 million. It's actually 3.9 million because they've got my team value slightly wrong because I've already brought in Pukki this week. So at this stage, I now have the funds, as far as I'm aware. Yep, so I've got 0.9 in the bank to do Gelhardt to Richarlison. So as a minimum, what my team would probably look like, assuming City single, right, assuming this is a single game for City, I'd probably bring Laporte onto my bench. If it's a double, I would probably start Laporte and then bench one of my other guys. It doesn't matter exactly what the bench boost looks like, I guess. This would be, as a minimum, what the bench boost would look like. So it'd be Foster as my bench keeper, Cash, Gordon, and then Laporte. If City double, that looks even better. I then would have the option, do I want to take a -4? And like I said, I think that would boil down to a couple of things. Number one, if I have any other injuries, I might need to. Have any of my players lost their place for some reason over those 2 weeks? And then the other thing is, how much rotation do I expect from Chelsea? Because at this stage, I have the option to take out Havertz, Mount, or Alonso. And I think most likely, this will depend on Manchester City. Because, for example, if Manchester City do double in 36, Havertz comes out for Foden, and I triple up on City. Right, so I take out Sterling here, but I bring in Foden. And I think Foden is more nailed than Sterling. And of course, by doing Sterling to Foden, I've essentially done there. By bringing in Foden for Sterling, that allows me to upgrade to Richarlison. So I still think that's worth it. Outside of that, if Manchester City don't double, I just then have other options like we spoke about in midfield. Right, so there are other options that you can go for. Rather than Saka, I could even potentially go for a Martinelli in there, and then that would give me for that Havertz spot 10.3 million. I could even potentially try and find a way, rather than Richarlison, if in this spot I do Dennis, I could even get Son, right? So I've thought about this because I do think I'm going to want probably a Spurs player for 37 and 38, right, against Burnley and Norwich. If I do Dennis rather than Richarlison, in this spot here for Foden, I've now got enough for Heung-min Son. I've also got enough for De Bruyne, by the way. Do bear that in mind as well. So at this stage, I could bring in Son, and the bench boost would probably look like something like that instead, right? So it'd be Dennis, Gordon, Cash, and Foster probably. Or again, it might end up being Laporte like that. I can't tell you exactly what these transfers are going to look, but what I am showing you is that I will probably have 2 free transfers in 36. One of those transfers will need to be downgrading somewhere to get me Gelhardt up to a decent striker, probably downgrading Sterling. And then I've got another transfer. If I want to take a hit, I can maybe bring in Son. I can maybe bring in another Arsenal midfielder if I want to. I can maybe bring in Foden or De Bruyne, again, if I want to, if Manchester City do double. I have endless possibilities for this. Let's say I go with something along these lines, right? Something along the lines of Martinelli and Son. I don't know exactly what I'll do in Dennis. Let's be honest, I'll probably go for Richarlison, right? Let me do the moves that I think I would probably do. It would be Richarlison in and Saka in, and I will probably stop there with Havertz, right? So let's say I just do that. I don't take any hits, right? I just bring in Havertz. Richarlison and Saka. The bench boost would look like this for 36. So Laporte, Gordon, Cash, and Foster. I'm perfectly happy with that. It's not perfect, but it's pretty decent. If we then switch to 37, remember, at the moment, it says Liverpool blanking. Liverpool will have their fixture against Southampton in 37. So this is a single game week for Liverpool. I would then probably bring in these players like this. I might end up maybe just benching Laporte. I don't know. I have to make that decision at this point. I would have 1 free transfer here to potentially make some other transfers. At this stage, I've got Gordon, Richarlison, Watkins, Cash, and Schmeichel as doublers. I would probably, if City do double here, right, of course, Laporte would come in, right? Laporte would come in 100%. I don't know who I would bench for now. Let's just do it like that. And then I would bring in a third City player. Outside of that, I think the change that I would probably make is probably at this stage, Mount to Coutinho, right? Because remember, they have the really nice double. I would captain Coutinho. The team looks very good for 37. Again, remember, Trent and Salah would be playing against Southampton. Really like the team here. I'd have maybe 5, 6, 7 doublers. I'd be able to just do that with 1 single transfer. Then for 38, the team's not too terrible. It would depend on what transfers that I had actually made so far. But if we do something like this, I would then probably just make 1 or 2 transfers. So, for example, Tony has a really great fixture against Leeds at home. And then I can either just keep Coutinho against City or keep Cash. I could keep one of those spots, or again, take 1 final -4. So it would potentially be 2 hits, which again, isn't perfectly ideal after a wild card, but I think it's fine. On the final day of the season, if you really want to go for it, there are so many decent options here. It would massively depend on who's doing well. I'm not going to even try and guess who I would want to go for here. But I guess this is all to show you that the team looks fairly fine. And I think I'm fairly happy with the wildcard draft as things stand. Like I said, it might be that by the time Saturday morning swings around, I go off this, and instead, this is what the wildcard would look like. If I go off of the Sterling draft, it would be this. Right? So it would be Coutinho in for Sterling, Richarlison in for Gelhardt, and then I'll probably go back to Reece James. Like I said, I think it's a slightly better option if you can afford it. Right? So that's it. It says 0.1 million. I've got that because I bought Pookie at a slightly cheaper price. So this is the way the team would look if I don't go for the Sterling draft. So I guess what I'd like you to know, based on what my plan is, based on my bench boost statistics, based on what I've just told you there, do you prefer attacking it with the Sterling draft and make it then needing to upgrade my bench? Or do you prefer going for it just for the bench boost statistics from the off and not booking transfers in? So just going for Coutinho instead of Sterling, allowing Gelhardt to Richarlison, and then allowing me to upgrade Alonso to James. At the moment, leaning towards the Sterling draft, but please do let me know down below. Also, let me know down below if you've got your wildcard. What does your wildcard draft look like? Absolutely let me know down below. And if you've got any transfer dilemmas, as always, drop them below. I'll do my best to get around to them, but I am at that Fantasy Football Festival on all day Friday, so it might be that I don't get around to answering too many questions, but do try and drop your comments down below, as always. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 34 almost finalised wildcard draft. Like I said, 13 or 12 or 13 of those players are going to stay the same. It's just that final spot. Do I want to take the risk with Sterling? Is essentially the way the draft come down to. It might be Coutinho, it might be Jota. There's a few players that could slot into that Sterling spot there. But I am pretty happy with the draft, and I'm really, really excited for the final 5 game weeks. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, you've enjoyed the content all season, you're looking forward to the final 5 game weeks of content as well, please do drop a like on the video, drop a comment down below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Best of luck for Game Week 34. If you're playing your wildcard, I hope you get green arrows. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.